What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with Liberty Hill Comics. Today we're doing part 3 of our 3-part series on all the keys for Quantumania. Today we have nothing but mega keys left. Really, at least one that is clearly a grail book, should be a grail book for anybody. We're going to talk about the first appearances, why they're important, what their impact on the MCU might be, what the market looks like, historic prices, today's fair market value, different grades. For those of you that don't have these books yet, where you might be able to pick them up and find the most value. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Thanks for joining me. I have some great news today. I woke up this morning and had 500 subscribers on YouTube. I'm really humbled by everybody joining me on this journey as I improve the content that I'm creating and share my comic book passion and experience with everybody out there. So thank you, genuinely. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? If you are subscribed, share my channel with a friend. Take one of my videos that you liked and just share it with somebody and ask them to watch it. I really appreciate it, but I'm trying to grow this channel and I really appreciate your help in doing that. One more thing, the spoilers are behind us. So unless you've been living under a rock, the 3 characters we're going to talk about today, you already knew were in the movie. So nothing to talk about there. But I will say this before we get started. I personally loved Quantumania. I thought the movie was better than anything in Phase 4. I thought it was an amazing kickoff to Phase 5. It felt like a very ensemble cast, like the first Avengers movie to me. And I loved the depth and I loved how all of the characters contributed. So there's some quirky stuff in there. I know some of you are upset about MODOK. I get over it. It was great. And I am absolutely 100% positive that Stan Lee would be thrilled to see MODOK as an Avenger. So enough said. All right, let's get on with it. First book we're going to talk about today, speaking of Stan Lee, and in fact, all the books we're talking about today were written by Stan Lee. Just to give you some sense of how important this man was and continues to be in the creation of pop culture and what it is that is important to us as collectors and what we enjoy. So this is Avengers number 8 from September of 1964. As I mentioned, this is another brilliant collaboration between Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This has been a big key for a long time. Right? This is not a new book. It's not something we just found out about or just got leaked. Kang is introduced here and becomes one of the most feared of all the Avengers antagonists and continues to be so to this day. He's been the big bad for the Avengers on multiple occasions, not just in volume 1 of their series, but all the way through. He has a tremendous story arc in volume 3, which I highly recommend. So this is not a character we just found out about. But what we did find out is that it's all but certain he is the Thanos level big bad for phases 4, 5, and 6 of the MCU. And we know that because of the announcement by Marvel Studios that these 3 phases together will be known as the Multiverse Saga. So I thought the first appearance of Thanos may be a good book to look at for some idea of what Avengers 8 could do in the marketplace over these 3 phases of the MCU. Iron Man number 55, the first appearance of Thanos, was published in February of 1973, essentially a decade after this book, Avengers number 8. And it has 4,740 universal copies in the CGC Census with a median grade of 7.5. If you look at the fair market value of a 7.5 copy of Iron Man number 55 over the last decade, basically those first 3 phases of the MCU, or at least once it was obvious that Thanos was the big bad, I'm looking at the decade from 2012 to 2022. The book saw essentially steady price appreciation from $400 to $1,200 in a 7.5 over that decade. The reason why we look at 7.5 is because that's the median grade. That's the grade that has the least amount of volatility because the supply is highest, and it's the one that has the most access for most collectors. So it makes the most sense to be the one that we would look at as a bellwether for where the price might go. That steady price appreciation from $400 to $1,200 over that decade is approximately a 12% annualized return over that same time period. And that's very respectable. This is almost the same return as the S&P 500 over that same time period, before dividends are reinvested. The S&P beats it just by about 2% once you consider reinvesting dividends. The S&P 500 returns 14% over that same decade. But anytime you can compete with S&P 500 returns while enjoying your hobby, I think you're doing a great job. If, for example, we put that up against somebody whose hobby was bowling for that same time period, they may have a lot of great experiences bowling, but they're spending money on beer and cigarette and shoes and balls and rental fees and gas to and from the lanes. And in our hobby, when we're situated to keep pace with the S&P 500 while enjoying our hobby rather than just sinking resources into it, we're doing a pretty good job. Now, in contrast, or to compare, Avengers number 8 has 2,827 universal copies in the CGC Census with a median grade of 5.0, which has a fair market value of $850 today. With 12% annualized return, that $850 today will be over $2,600 in one decade. Now, obviously, past performance cannot predict future returns, but Kang's first appearance has some things going for it over Thanos' first appearance. For one, it's rarer. There are fewer than half the copies in the CGC Census relative to Thanos' first appearance, and the median grade is much lower, 5.0 versus 7.5 for Thanos' first appearance. That means it's much rarer in high grade. Also, it's a better book. It's got a great cover that features Kang prominently by the definitive creative team of the Marvel Silver Age, Stan the Man Lee and Jack King Kirby. We've talked about it before, but slabbing is a big part of the hobby in 2023. And people want to display their slabs, and they want to show off their big first appearance books. Thanos is not on the cover of Iron Man 55, which certainly held it back some in terms of total returns. And if you just put these two books next to one another, that is Iron Man 55 and Avengers number 8, one of them just has way more visual impact, and it's just frankly something that you would rather have slabbed or rather put on your wall. I think this book has, for those reasons, more potential than Iron Man number 55. So even though Avengers 8 has already appreciated some over the last few years, I think you are safe to buy this book here in any grade. We're having a little bit of a letdown after the movie, as we always do. Speculators want to dump their books as the movie finishes. I don't know why they think that timing is good. It typically ends to a glut of supply at a time when we don't necessarily have a rush of buyers, so it's always good to buy right after a release. So you have green light from me. I think your returns on this are likely to be better than the stock market over the next decade, and I think you're going to have a lot more fun than just watching your S&P. If you want to swing for the fences on this book, look at copies at the 20th percentile, which start at 7.5, or the 10th percentile, which start at 8.5, or even the 5th percentile, which starts at 9.0. While the ante is much greater for these copies, I think the potential payoff is greater as well. Normal rules apply. Just because I said you can buy this book now doesn't mean you just run out with FOMO and grab it. and pay whatever somebody's asking. Be patient. Look for opportunities to buy at or below fair market value. We have tools out there for you to determine that. There's no reason for you to pay 20 or 30% above fair market value right now for this book. As I said, copies are coming to market. If you acquire this book now, I don't think you're going to regret it anytime this decade. This book is on its way from key to mega key to grail status as the MCU plays out the multiverse saga. If there was any doubt whether this book was a blue chip key before Quantumania, I think Jonathan Majors just put that argument to rest. This is a blue chip key. Next up is a book that I'm really fond of and I'm glad is finally getting its due. And I'm happy to talk about it. I don't think we've talked about it on the channel before. And it's the first appearance of Janet Van Dyne. It's another early Marvel Silver Age key, bordering on mega key grail status. And I think it's been underrated for a long time, and there's a lot of opportunity with this book. Tales to Astonish number 44 from June of 1963, again from the creative team of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. June of 1963, the Marvel Age is just picking up steam. This book predates the first appearances of the Avengers, the X-Men, Daredevil, and Doctor Strange. This is early days Marvel Silver Age. Janet Van Dyne, in becoming the Wasp, becomes only the second female superheroine in the Marvel Universe, after Sue Storm, of course. Let me repeat that. I don't think Janet Van Dyne gets her due. She's the second female superheroine that Jack Kirby and Stan Lee created. She's foundational to the MCU. She's a founder of the Avengers. She named the Avengers, okay? This character is important, and people have been sleeping on her first appearance for far too long. Now, it's fair to say the Wasp was a bit of a creation of her time, and, like Sue Storm, was sometimes written to be a foolish woman more interested in hunky guys and shopping than fighting crime. But the fact that she was there at all was a bit progressive, and over time she was given better and better characterization in line with the male counterparts, and even eventually surpassing Hank Pym as a hero in the Marvel Universe. In the comics, she eventually becomes a strong leader. She's the first female chairperson of the Avengers, and she leads the team through some very trying times. In the MCU, they've taken that depiction one step further, and she's a technological genius and badass fighter as well. We all knew Michelle Pfeiffer could pull this role off, and in Quantumania, she got a chance to really shine. This book has it all, again, like Avengers 8 and the first appearance of Kang. We have the first appearance of a founding member of the Avengers. Her first cover is also her first appearance. It's a great cover. It's by the classic creative team of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and it's very early Marvel Age to boot. So, as I mentioned, this book has blue chip written all over it. People have finally woken up on this book because it was too cheap for too long. In addition to being such an important book, it's difficult to find copies. It's just not a plentiful book in the marketplace. There are only 1,069 universal copies in the CGC Census, with a median grade of 5.0, which has a fair market value today of $975, down from the record of 1,400. This book is really tough in high grade, owing to how early it is and this dark cover. 20th percentile starts at 7.0. 10th percentile starts at 8.0. So this slabbed 7.5 is a very nice high-grade copy. Yes, I know it's PGX. It's fine. At any time, I can crack this, I can press it, I can clean it, I can sub it. I know what this book is. This is a 7.5 in a CGC, maybe an 8 after I clean and press it. So don't worry about me, it's fine. Mid-grade raws are going to be difficult to find for under $1,000. So this is one of those books that might make more sense to hunt slabbed to reduce risk of buying something with a hidden flaw. The big question is, can we buy this book today and get a decent return on your investment? I'm less certain of that. On the one hand, this is rare. It's an important early Silver Age grail. It has all the properties we look for in investment grade comics that I mentioned a moment ago. On the other hand, I think we are unlikely to get any more catalysts for this book to take off in an explosive way. This one is, I think, not for the speculators, but for the long-term investors, especially someone who wants to curate a collection of truly significant comic books. This book should be in your collection and will appreciate nicely, although I think in truth it's unlikely to outpace the S&P 500 returns unless you seek out a truly high-grade copy or, as we've been mentioning, perhaps run down the elusive UK price variant, both of which I think could potentially outpace stock market returns over the next decade based on their extreme rarity. All right, you know what book is next. The Big Kahuna, right there. Tales to Astonish, number 27. I can't say enough about this book. This book is one of the most important books in my collection. It's one of the ones that I am most excited to talk about and most thankful to have in my collection. It's humbling to be a caretaker of this book. That's how important it is. So let's talk about it. Tales to Astonish number 27, publication date January 1962. This is really early Marvel Age, and it's such a huge and underrated key that many people are not aware of its significance. To put this book in perspective, you have to know the origins of the Silver Age. The Silver Age began at DC in 1956 with the revival of The Flash in Showcase Comics. As is fairly well known today, The Flash was revived with a new identity and a modernized sci-fi origin. It took DC a while to know they had a hit on their hands, but the book sold well and DC slowly applied this formula with other characters, and ultimately culminated in the introduction of the Silver Age Justice Society of America, which they renamed the Justice League of America, in Brave and the Bold number 28 in March of 1960. This book was enough of a commercial success that the Justice League got moved to their own book, and that success allowed the folks over at Marvel Comics, who hadn't been publishing any regular superhero comics in well over a decade, to take a chance, first with Fantastic Four number 1 in December of 1961, and then to publish this book 6 months before they published Amazing Fantasy 15 and introduced the world to Peter Parker. How many of you realize that Hank Pym's first appearance here is the second superhero first appearance of the entire Marvel universe? Before the Hulk, Spider-Man, Thor, and Iron Man? Well, it's not quite that simple. You see, this is Hank Pym, and he invents the power to shrink. He's a scientist. He does have his connection to ants, but he's not fighting crime as a superhero yet. He was first published in a one-off, ironic sci-fi tale that was common to the title of Tales to Astonish. Then, FF, Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Thor are published, and they're hits. And Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are looking for ways to expand their superhero lineup rapidly because it's clear this is the direction the market's going, and they want to capture as much of the growing superhero comic book market as they can from DC, who has, after all, a 5-year head start on them. So they decide the best course of action is to dust off old Hank Pym here and debut him as Ant-Man in Tales to Astonish number 36 as a full-blown costume hero. That book predates the first appearance of Iron Man in Tales of Suspense number 39. So either way you slice it, this book is super important and super early in the Marvel Silver Age. CGC does denote this book as the first appearance of Ant-Man, despite him not being in costume just yet, and that makes this the second superhero first appearance in the Marvel Silver Age after the Fantastic Four, but importantly, before Spider-Man, the Hulk, Thor, or Iron Man. And the early nature of this book is reflected in the rarity of the book, both generally and especially in high grade. There are only 933 universal copies of Tales to Astonish number 36 in the CGC Census, fewer than any of the other Marvel early Silver Age grails. It's especially difficult in grade, with a median grade of just 4.0. That makes this 6.5 very high grade at the 13th percentile. A 4.0, which is the median grade, has a fair market value of $4,300, with a record high of $4,715. So despite the bear market of 2022, this one is trading near its all-time highs. And note that it's worth more than $1,000 a point in terms of the grade. Where will the market go from here? On this book, I have the same advice as I do on the first appearance of the Wasp. I don't think this is a good speculation candidate because I don't see Hank Pym having any more big catalysts in the MCU. That said, this book is a grail. It's so important. It's never going to not be important. It's a slow, steady climber in terms of market value. It's a blue chip, Silver Age key that is going to give you predictable returns in line with other asset classes with similar risk reward. Like Wasp's first appearance, if you want to swing for the fences and you want a higher risk reward profile, seek out a super high grade. 10th percentile starts at 7.0, 5th percentile starts at 8.0. Or hunt the infamous UK price variant. They are known to exist as evidenced by this image, but there are incredibly none in the CGC Census today. Well, I hope you enjoyed the finale to my rundown of all of the key books of Quantumania. I know I promised the best for last. I hope you get as excited about these books as I do. These three books in particular, I just love looking at them, holding them, talking about them, sharing my passion with you. So hopefully that came through. Let me know. Leave a comment below. Did I miss a book that you thought should be here? Maybe the Bill Murray appearance, maybe the cameo by Loki. We could pick that book up soon if we want. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And until next time, happy hunting and take care of one another.